Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Mike Ames Recruitment Show, where we are doing a topic that I'm super excited about and I've wanted to do for ages on the show, and that is buying styles, the secret to successful selling, which will help you to improve your sales success rate. Now, Mike, we love buying styles here at Flair. Pete and I specifically, it was a whole new world when you explained them to us. But for those of us who haven't heard, can you let us know what buying styles are? Can you give us an intro?
I certainly can. I've got to tell you, Kirsty, it's a form of cheating, right? If you know this, and it's easy, I'm going to show you today, and then we've got something for you a little later, which will help you. It's a form of cheating. It will give you an unfair advantage. I promise. Rarely do that on this show, but I promise if you master these techniques, it will give you an unfair advantage. Let me tell you a little story, which is a true story. When I started in sales a long time ago, my style, because I've not been a salesman or anything, so my style was enthusiasm and passion and integrity and, kind of full on, come with me because I'll do all these things and I promise I will and blah, blah, blah. I've got to be honest with you, passion sells, doesn't it? And it worked really well with some people, but it didn't work for others. It was like really weird. I couldn't figure it out. Why doesn't it work on everybody? And over a period of time, I figured out that you kind of had to change your style a little bit according to who you were talking to. But I had no science behind it. It was very much trial and error, and eventually got to the stage where I suppose won more than I lost, I guess. And that was good enough. And then I read a book called The 5 Paths to Persuasion, because sales is a form of persuasion, obviously. And I read this book and it changed everything for me because it made sense of why my approach worked with some people and not with others. And the best way I can describe it is to use an analogy. So imagine you've got a key and that key is your pitch. Most people just have one key. It's what they do. They turn up and they do their thing, sit down, open their box, take their pitch out and ta-da, that's it, right? But in reality, the door that you're trying to open, which is the client door, there's actually more than one. So there's more than one lock. One key only fits one of them. It doesn't fit all of them, right? So what you need to do is figure out what the lock looks like and then take the appropriate key out of the bag and use that one. Because if you do that, you will be more successful. Whether you're trying to persuade someone to buy something or whether you're trying to persuade them to do something, whether it's the kids to clean up the room, go to bed early, or the husband or wife to go on the holiday you want to go to, whatever it is, it's the same process, right? Because everybody's got a primary and then a secondary buying style. And if you know them, you can basically craft the key and be successful. That's why it's like magic. It's just brilliant. I love them.
Yeah, I mean, when we learned them, Pete and I, you've been in sales a long time, Mike, but when we learned them, it opened up a whole new world for us, which is especially powerful if you've got a team of people that you want to, get scalable and help them to do sales for you. It's going to be the win. So, Mike, without further ado, shall we launch into our first of the 5 buying?
Before we do that, let me just point out that we have, if you can bring it up, Kirsty, a set of notes. Here they are, that you can get. They're free. There's no big deal with them. We can just get them. And it's got all the styles in there and how you can spot people and some examples, far more than we can cover in half an hour in a half an hour show. So Kirsty will tell you how we're going to get that at the end. So yes, having said that, Kirsty, let's dive in and look at the first buying style, which is charismatic, I think.
It is indeed. And this amounts to about 25% of people, right?
Yeah, about a quarter of the people out there are charismatics. We're going to ask you to guess what Kirsty is in a minute, but I'm a charismatic buyer. That's not to say I'm charismatic. I don't mean that. It means another word that you could use, I suppose, is impulsive. And so I see something and I can imagine using it and I want it immediately. And you can spot them because they say things like, hey, well, so does it do this? And if we wanted it to do that, could it do that? They're saying those things because in their head, they're already using your product or service. So I totally get that. And it's they're sort of building a world inside their head of which your product is in the middle of it at this time when they're talking to you. And because of that, your job really is to get them excited about that future. They're not really detailed people half the time. They're not that detailed. They don't really want to know all the details necessarily. They'll have questions for you, but you can see it in their eyes. You can see them actually thinking about this and asking the type of questions. And the other thing with charismatics, you can close them. You can do it there and then. In fact, it's better to do, because to tell you what, the thing with charismatics, and this is very much the case with me, as soon as I've left the situation when I've been given this opportunity, then I lose interest, and because I'm on to the next shiny thing. So you've got to really close them there and then. Do you remember the time I took the Previa? We had a Toyota Previa, which is a Land Cruiser, which was not a Land Cruiser, which was a people carrier, into the garage in Coventry because I'd broken the wing mirror. And while I was there, they sold me a Land Cruiser.
Oh no, not just any Land Cruiser. So we had this Previa it was a Previa, but it was nice. It smelled nice. And he came back with a Land Cruiser that stunk of cigarettes without consulting my mother, anyone else in the family. She was livid.
I didn't do that again, tell you the truth.
No.
Never done that since. But the point I was trying to make is the salesman did the thing, started to talk about how you can use it and what kind of things you can do with it and where you can go. I was already in that car, mate, riding over hills in Wales, and that's how you sell to charismatics.
Yeah.
So,
the other thing I would say about charismatics is they do tend to surround themselves with the other four that help to balance them out.
One in particular, which I'll point out in a minute. Yeah.
Yes. So that's another reason you want to close them there and then. Yeah,
because if it goes to one of the other styles, you need to change your pitch completely. If you mix pitches up, like, you can really easily lose a charismatic by being too detailed and to just going through the process that you go through. You'll lose them. They're just not interested. They want a decision. Let's do it. Move on. So I love charismatics, actually.
So if we were to summarize well, you would love charismatics because you are one. But if we were to summarize charismatics, it's essentially you have to sell the dream. You have to sell the picture.
You do, the big picture and the dream, and talk about what they can get from it. It's like when I go to a golf shop and the pro's talking to me about a new club and I can get an extra 30 yards on my drive. That's what I'm thinking about, not the club. I don't care about the club. I'm thinking about, 30 yards on my drive, or whatever it is that they're trying to sell me and I want to buy. So my father was the same with kitchen gadgets, bless him. So God rest his soul. It's the same thing. Wow, if I had that, I can do this. And so that's a charismatic, definitely.
And the other thing with charismatics as well, I think, is that they tend to like new and unproven things. So you get I feel like a lot of investors in like new tech are going to be charismatics because they like the idea that they could be sort of at the forefront of it.
Yeah, they are. They want to get an edge, like I want to hit 30 yards longer than the people I'm playing with. I want to get that edge. And if this is going to give me that edge, then I'm interested in it. And so that's why the new stuff is important, not because it's new necessarily. They're not afraid of new, like some of the people are that we're going to talk about in a minute. They're not afraid of new or put off by new at all. But what they're really looking for is an edge. And that's kind of important to them.
Okay, so now I think, right, let's talk about the second one, which are thinkers, which amount to about 11% of the population. And these are very, very different to charismatics, aren't they?
They are. I'm married to one, as a matter of fact. Mrs. Ames is, in fact, a thinker. So if she's going to buy a new car, she does loads of research. So in a minute, when we've been through them all, I'd like you to put in the comments, if you don't mind, what you think you are, what style you think you are. So I'd really be interested to see that, if you don't mind. Not that I'm going to try and sell to you or anything, just like to know. Anyway, so she a new car, so she will research all the models, and she'll get the books, and she'll go online, and then we have to go and traipse around and see all these different cars in all the showrooms in South Birmingham. It's just a nightmare, really. But she does that, and then she won't make a decision. It's like, well, I have to think about that, right? And one of the things with thinkers is that if you ask them if they want information, they'll say yes. So you say with the charismatic, do you want me to send you something through on this? No, yeah, if you want to, yeah, just not interested really. One of the ways you can spot a thinker is that they definitely do want all that stuff, and they'll read it, right? That's their thing. They want to absorb information, cogitate a little bit, noodle it round, and then the answer will appear to them. Now, the interesting thing about selling to thinkers is that, first of all, you have to pander to that need. Have lots of data, performance data, explanations, overviews, case studies, anything you can lay your hands on that they will absorb, and have that ready and make it available to them. So if you offer it to them and it's like, yes, please send me that, there's a very good chance, not guaranteed, but there's a very good chance they're a thinker. The way you can always tell is that they will not close on the day. Not going to happen. In fact, if you try and close them on the day, you'll piss them off. Mrs. Ames has actually walked out of car showrooms because she felt that the car salesman was being a little bit pushy. The old, well, we've got this deal till the end of the month. Well, I'll wait till next month and pay more then.
That sends it wild.
Yeah, I can speak, the door's closed, she can't hear me, it's absolutely fine. But the point is that she knows this anyway. But this obsession with, I need to think it through, and then the answer will pop out, and then I'll do what that says. So you have to give them time. And you can always tell. So if you say something like at the end of the pitch, well, okay, I'm going to send you all this stuff. Well, hopefully that'll be enough. If you need any more, please let me know, and I'll give you whatever you want. Now, when's a good time for us to touch base on this? In other words, I'm not going to do that. Can I ring you next Tuesday or next Thursday? I mean, do people still close like that? Do they? I don't know. They do if they're stuck in the 1990s, I think. But most people don't. It's like, well, when do you want me to call? So, but don't be pushy. How long do you need to absorb all this and cogitate? Yeah. Week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? What do you think? And then you can put a backstop on it. So if I haven't heard from you in, say, 3 weeks' time, is it okay if I give you a call?
Yeah, it's almost the flip reverse of charismatics, isn't it? Charismatics there and then is shiny and new, whereas thinkers is back off, like I'll give you the time, I'll give you the space that you need to sort of...
the computer, the cogs will whir and it'll grind the data, and then bang, an answer will come. The good thing about thinkers is normally when they say yes, it's like yes. There's no change in their mind, or, well, this isn't what I thought it was. It's yes. And it's the same as Babs when she buys a car. I'm using that as an example. It could be anything. Just bought a dishwasher, exactly the same. When she's got it, she's happy with it. She doesn't, unlike me, I get a car and think, oh, that's not really what I thought. Oh, I better go and get myself a Land Cruiser. Yes, that was really good. Anyway, let's move on. So
if we were to summarize thinkers, it's essentially give them data, give them as much data as they can possibly carry, and then leave them be. Yes. Give them space to come to you.
Yes. But you can put a backstop on it if you want. Yeah. You can say, can I ring it, whatever, can we touch base or whatever, but locally, not pushy and certainly don't mention like, oh, we got this deal or anything. Ooh,
time limits.
No.
Okay. So the next one is skeptics. Oh. And I think there's quite a few of these now, in the fact that a lot of people have been sold to a lot more. But skeptics are a different, they're sort of very similar, they're more similar to thinkers than they are to charismatics, aren't they?
Well, they don't believe anything you tell them. They're very easy to spot. It's like you can see it in their body language.
Don't be cross them like that.
Yeah, I just did the same thing. Look, okay, then, right, whatever. Yeah, that's okay. I perhaps exaggerated that body language. You get it. They don't lean forward when you're talking about things. So charismatics will lean forward. Their body language will change, and so will thinkers. But thinkers will do the old thing. It's skeptics. It's like no. So what you have to do with skeptics really is blind them with proof. The best way I've found to deal with skeptics is to say, look, I can provide any number of bits of information and collateral, and I've got case studies coming out in the ears. Do you know, the best thing is if I just get you to speak to one or two of my clients. Let me tell you this quick story. I know you've got a story on this as well. When I was selling the first business in 98, KPMG were doing the sale. And one of the reasons they got the deal was, not that I'm particularly a skeptic, but one of the reasons was, he said to me, look, he said, the best thing is to talk to one of my clients that I've just recently done a deal for. So here's a list. Have a look. Tell me who you want to talk to, and I'll set it up for you. And it's that, for me, that was okay. I'm a charismatic buyer. I'd already made my mind up, really, I think, anyway, because I thought he could do the great job for us. But that was like the flip it over thing, as that kind of proof always is, to be honest. Not that in many cases people do take the call. I did, because it was like several £1 million on the line. So of course I did, but most people don't. But this idea of proof, and I don't mean that you get voted number one thingy bob or your trust advisor or something, because skeptics are not really going to get taken in by that, because we all know you can manipulate those as much as you like, really. Someone got a number one bestseller on Amazon, I think it was, and it was just a book with blank pages in it, and they manipulated the algorithms to do that. So we all know that. So
yeah, my favorite.
I'm not saying don't do that, by the way. If you're a big trust advisor person or whatever, Google reviews or something, yes, carry on doing it, because some people really do buy into it, but not so much skeptics.
Yeah, my favorite story is Mike Sparks, who was sort of Dad's teacher when he first got into sales.
Mentor and business partner.
Sorry. couldn't think of the word. He had this thing, which I remember you telling me as a kid, and it really stuck with me. He literally just pulled out a list of your current clients of names and went, tell me any name on this list.
He did.
And I can let you call them.
He did. He was exceptional. Here's the sales ledger. Tell us, which one of these you want to talk to. I'll set it up for you. Skeptic,
as a skeptic,
eating out of his hand. Hungry chicken.
That is amazing. And that's the kind of things that Skeptic wants. So if we were to sort of summarize Skeptics, it's proof.
We'd have done more proofs if you'd have had time, Kirsty, but we didn't.
I would have copied and pasted, shouldn't I, really? But yeah, it's bombard them with proof. And similarly to thinkers as well, don't pressure them. Time limits aren't going to work for them.
Yeah, there's no need, because they won't bow. They won't. Again, funnily enough, is that if you can get past that surrounding thing that they've got going on inside that protective cover, they're lovely people normally. They're very supportive, very helpful, and they're bought in. Once they're in. They're very loyal usually, because you pass the test basically. Obviously, if you mess them about, not so good. But then that applies to anyone, doesn't it, really? I
do imagine skeptics are quite good to have as clients, because I'm willing to bet they are quite loyal, because they don't want the hassle of people.
Well, also they're skeptical of other people approaching them.
Exactly.
So who probably have only got the one key, and it's not the key that works for skeptics. So,
Okay, fantastic. So the next one, Mike, is followers. Now, I think this is sort of self-explanatory. It's 36% of the population, so a little over a third of the population. Can you sort of give us a little bit more?
Okay. Rule number one with followers, because they're the biggest percentage, 36%, just over a third of people, is if you're not sure, treat them as followers. You can't go too far wrong, really. I mean, you'll spot charismatics. You'll see them anyway. And to be fair, I think you can spot them all once you've done it a bit. If you read the notes we're going to send you, you'll nail it, right? But if you're not sure, then treat them as followers until you understand a little bit more about it. Now, the thing with followers is nobody will ever admit that they're a follower, because what they do is they'll only tread the path that someone else like them has trodden before. So if you go along with a service and you've never sold it to someone like them, the chances of you selling it are pretty damn slim. They want to see someone just like them who's used this product or service and it's been successful. That's what they want to see, because it's like, oh, well, if it worked for them, it'll work for me then. I'm not saying that's necessarily true, but that's the belief system that they have. So again, it's very similar to a skeptic. It's about proof, but it's about focused and directed proof.
Yeah.
It's like, so, okay, well, you're, a HR director in a small manufacturing company that sends all their stuff abroad, exports all their stuff. Well, as it turns out, we did a project very similar to you. Here's the case study, and if you want me to, I can get you a conversation with the HRD there. I'm happy to do that, right? That's what they're looking for. So you can't just bombard them with stuff.
It's focused.
You've got to make it focused, because what they're looking for is that connection between the thing that you're telling them and them. It's reckoned, I mean, if you read the 5 Paths of Persuasion book, if you can get a copy now, and that's down to all sorts of reasons, lots of reasons why they are like that. But some of it is fear of failure, which is why managers will never admit that they're followers. That's not, I'll make whatever decision I like. Have you done it with someone else like me? Well, as it turns out, we have actually. I have a case.
Followers are going to be big fans of things like niche or specialization, do you think?
Yeah, yes, anything which the closer that you can get to their world, better they like it, because the less risk they're taking, really. And you can spot them by sort of saying, well, things like, hey, well, we've got some case studies sort of people that we've done work for very similar to you. Would you like to see that? Oh, yes, please. Yeah. I mean, there's a definite yes, we'd like to see that. Right. And if you're going to give information, what kind of information? We got generic stuff, or we got stuff that kind of relates to your world? Oh, yes, the stuff that relates to us. It's not difficult to work it out, to be honest.
Yeah. So if we were to sort of summarize up followers, I think thinkers, skeptics, and followers are sort of vaguely similar. They're probably the closest of them all. But essentially with followers is, where have you done this before with someone like me? It's that final thing. It's that link. I need to see a connection between what I do and what your other clients.
That's right. Skeptics are more aware, have you done this before? And they're more open to buying new things and looking at new things and using new people. They're kind of okay with that. But followers really want to iron out every corner of doubt and risk that they can to make sure that this thing will work for them.
Okay, fantastic. Now, the final one, I think, is, I've always thought the most obvious when we get into that, and that is controllers, which amounts to about 9% of the population. So this is the smallest of the group. And what would you say controllers are, Mike?
Well, as the name suggests, they like to be in control. And I think you can spot these from the moment that you turn up on the day, if you see them in person or when they come on the screen. It's the body language, the demeanor. You were saying as well, Kirsty, you spot them through the handshake, don't you?
Always hand on top when they go and shake. Not necessarily that obvious, but when they go in for a handshake, most people go in sort of sideways. They will always sort of be on the top.
Sometimes they'll clasp your arm as well.
Yeah, and they'll squeeze a bit harder depending on who they are. The handshake's a big thing with controllers.
I mean, if you want to mess with them, there's all sorts of things you can do. But if you want to sell to them, best not mess to them. But the point is, I think you can normally tell them. They're very easy, their demeanor. And what you can't do to them is try and take control of that situation, because if you do that, you will lose. They're the ones with the money. They're the ones with the opportunity, not you. So if you don't play their game, you're going to lose. And so I think it's very important to say things like, well, okay, what would you like? It's all about questions, right? What would you like me to send you? What would help you to make that decision? When would be a good time for us to touch base? When do you think it's a good time? How do you want this process to unfold? There's a lot of questions, I think, that you need to have stored up ready for controllers. Whereas you would make statements, well, I'll send this and this through to you, or I've got a great case study, I'm going to send that, you'll love it because it's exactly like your situation. Or, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we give you some time on this? Why don't we touch base, in a couple of weeks' time, like you would do with a thinker perhaps, or a follower? No, you can't do any of that. You've got to leave them in control. You can do that backstop thing, though. Again, it's like, well, okay, so I'll just leave it with you to ring me. Yeah. And I mean, would you be okay if I hadn't heard from you in 3-4 weeks, if I just give you a call or drop you an email? Would that be okay with you? Yeah, that's fine. Done, But
I think the key thing is questions, but the way that you demonstrate that is you're letting them be in charge. You're letting them control the meeting. They'll normally stop you sometimes and say, like, oh, I want to see about this. Follow it. If it goes outside of the routine of your pitch, you follow it. You do
very
it.
Good point. Yeah, very good point. I've got to say, though, with this is that mostly I don't work with controllers, because although this is the selection process at the beginning to make the decision, that never stops. It's all the way through. And I have in the past and done okay with some of them, but by and large, statistically, it's not going to work out well, because, that just isn't really so. But everyone's got different ways of doing things. And I have worked, when I was in recruitment, funnily enough, I've worked with CIOs and HR directors and data processing managers, showing his age, who were very, very much controllers, and did okay, really, because I knew I could help them and get the right people. And as long as I stuck to the rules, their rules, it was absolutely fine. But in my job now, where we're about breaking rules all the time and doing things differently, well, it's not for them, really. So yeah, controllers definitely.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a quick summary. We have had a couple already, but please let us know. First of all, any guesses as to what I am? Mike is clearly charismatic. Any guesses to what I am, or alternatively, let us know what you are in the comments. It's always interesting.
It'd be great if you could do that, yeah.
But I mean, if I were to summarize this up, Mike, essentially there is more than one pitching style out there, and you need to get that. You need to sort of get one that matches all of the ones we've spoken about. And then during a pitch, essentially you need to figure out the other person's buying style, and then you need to pitch to them in that way. That's a fairly decent summary, isn't it?
That is absolutely spot on. You've nailed it there. You've got to recognize you need more than one pitching style, and you have to quickly be able to assess the person in front of you, and then very quickly adjust your style to them. I mean, you're not saying different things. Your product is your product, but the way in which you present it and interact with them and get decisions from them will differ wildly. And it is like cheating. I'll end like I started. It's fantastic.
I also think that the common thing is to pitch in the way that you are. You're a charismatic. The way you explained how you pitched at the beginning is that to a charismatic. For those of you who haven't guessed already, I am a skeptic through and through, as I grew up with a salesman for a father. So I am a skeptic through and through, as is, oddly enough, Peter. And both of our seconds are thinking as well. So you really cannot push us. We object clearly to it. So I think that is something to be really aware of. You tend to pitch in the way that now sometimes that can be helpful, because I think a lot of business owners do tend to be charismatics, as Adrian Mansfield has come out.
I can vouch for that. He definitely is a
100%.
charismatic buyer.
100%. But there are always other people out there, like Lucas is a thinker. So there is a lot of different choice out there. So make sure you do get it right. Okay, so Mike, in a second, we're going to ask for your top tip about how people can get started with buying styles. But before then, two things. One, I just want to remind people that we are going to give you the URL to get those buying style notes in the comment below. It's going to be a link to the Vault, which is our free online product where there's just loads of data, and one of them is buying style. So if you want to do that, I'll send the link below in the comments.
And just to say on that, that's not like a trick or anything. We've got loads of members of it. We don't spam you or anything like that. It's just tons. We just need somewhere to put our free content, and there it is. There's so much of it in the comments as well. We'll tell you where to look when you get in there, because you won't find it otherwise. So that'd be okay. Put that in the comment for you.
And then Mike, next week, who have we got? Because you're gallivanting off on holiday, so it's Pete and I running.
No, next week I'm not. I'm here next week.
Next week you're here. The week after. So who have we got next week, Mike?
We've got Dorian Dugmore, right? Weirdly, and he's a wellness psychologist. He's Dr. Dugmore, in actual fact, who he is. And there's this thing called secret stress. It's really important. I know, happy clappy, we're not doing that because we can't make money out of it. Please tune in. Please tune in, because we know about obvious stress. We know about that. We feel fight or flight. We know it's there. It's there. We deal with it. It goes away. Secret stress, probably everybody is suffering from it, and it's going to get worse next year, and it will kill you. And he's going to tell you how to spot it, what to do about it, how you can deal with it in the real workplace that we all live in now. So he's a really good guy. I'm looking forward to having him on the show. So Dorian Dugmore, Dr. Dugmore, next.
When you came across him, as somebody who has routinely said to me that they don't feel stress, you saw him and came back and went, Kirsty, I think I am a bit stressed.
Yeah, because I don't feel stressed ever. I don't get stressed really like that. I'm too old and too fat, and so it didn't bother me. But I went, and I said, yeah, I've got secret stress, and I've been working on that, because you can see the signs. You know, there are lots of signs. He's going to share those with us. So,
but similarly, if you have a team, being able to spot those secret signs of stress in your team is really
very good point. Yeah.
As well. Okay, so Mike, let's talk about your top tip. People are watching this and they're thinking, wow, Mike, buying styles seems like a way to win a lot more pitches and get a lot more business.
So we're going to do it a little different, because we normally bring it at the bottom. I know you're going to do that, yeah. But actually, we're going to kind of show the screen as well, I think, aren't we, Kirsty?
Yes, we are. So basically, you're saying to ask these two questions.
Yeah, right. There's lots of ways. If in the notes, it tells you specific things you can ask and whatever. But these are two things you could just do right now. In fact, you can go home and ask the other half exactly what these things are. So first question is, at the beginning of the process, well, okay, what's the best experience that you've had when buying from someone like me? Now, clearly you would put that into your words, because that's going to sound a bit kooky. But basically what you're saying is, how do you want me to sell to you? I mean, that's what that is, really, right? And then the second one is, in these kind of situations, how do you like to run them? And from those two questions, I promise the answer just like, oh, yeah, I know what that is, really. It's easy. I mean, there are fancy ways you can do it, and I've shared some of those with you today. But those two questions are almost foolproof, to be honest.
I like things that are foolproof, Mike. So again, they are available in the notes if you want them, and I'm going to put that link in below. So Mike, I believe we've pretty much come to the end of the show.
I'd just like to finish with something, though, if it's okay. I know you did the summary, and I know we've talked about it. And this is something, these softer skills, people in recruitment often don't take much notice of. It's like the practical things, like being able to get that first call through, or Boolean expressions and all this sort of stuff, to be better at searching. And they're important. There is no question about that. But these softer skills, particularly when you're dealing with new business, when you're dealing with staff or your boss, if you have one, because this is about persuasion more than anything else. Sales is just a form of persuasion. This is about persuasion. This is about understanding how you put your case, whatever it might be, forward to somebody in a way that they're much more likely to say yes. Right? It's the deal. If you're pitching for a promotion at work, it's the same. You want your team to do something individually, you deal with them, it's the same. You're pitching for a piece of work, as I've said, it's the same. You're going to a client and want them to do something, to change prices or something, it's the same. They've got their buying styles. figure it out and get your best key out for the lock, because you're more likely to open the door and get the goodies inside. So my advice is, if you've liked this, is share it with your team. It's on YouTube. You'll all get it in as an email this afternoon or tomorrow morning, actually. So the more you can get people to do this, the better it is.
Fantastic. So I don't think I can add much more to that. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's watched and shared with us what kind of buying styles they have. Obviously, you've got a skeptic and a charismatic here saying thank you very much for watching. And thank you to you, Mike, for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you, Kirsty, and we'll see you all next week.